The avoidant man who is secretly attracted to you always shows these signs. Listen up, because what I'm about to tell you is going to change the way you look at that man who keeps pulling away yet never truly lets go. The avoidant man, the one who acts distant, guarded, and impossible to read, he's actually showing you clear signs that he's into you, but you need to know what to look for. Let's break down a behavior that gives an avoidant man away every single time. His eyes. He might not say much, he might act indifferent, he might even distance himself. But there's one thing he cannot control: the way he watches you when he thinks you're not looking. You ever get that feeling, that tingle on the back of your neck, like someone's watching you? And then when you turn around, he quickly looks away, suddenly engrossed in his phone, his drink, or the most uninteresting conversation in the world. That's not an accident. That's attraction, and not just any attraction, hidden attraction. The kind he doesn't want you to see, the kind he might not even be fully aware of himself. Avoidant men are not the type to stare openly and boldly declare their feelings. They won't be the ones locking eyes across the room and making their intentions obvious. No, their attraction operates in the shadows, in the spaces in between conversations, in the moments when they think they can look at you without consequence. And that's exactly why their eyes betray them. Why does he do this? Why does an avoidant man, someone who supposedly doesn't want attachment, still watch you? The answer is simple. His mind is at war with his emotions. See, deep down, his attraction is there. It's pulling him in. He wants to look. He wants to be near you. He wants to connect. But the second he feels that pull, his defenses kick in. His mind reminds him, this is dangerous. Don't get too close. Don't let her know. So what does he do? He watches from a distance. He observes instead of acts. The next time you're in a room together, whether it's a social gathering, work, the gym, anywhere, pay attention to his behavior. Don't just focus on what he says. Focus on what he does when he thinks you're not paying attention. You'll notice small moments. You'll see how his gaze lingers just a little longer than it should, how he subtly shifts his posture when you walk by, how his energy feels different when you enter the space. And here's the kicker: his reactions will tell you everything you need to know. Because an avoidant man does not want to be caught looking. If you suddenly lock eyes with him, he'll turn away so fast you'd think he was never looking in the first place. That's not rejection. That's fear. That's his instinct telling him, she saw you, shut it down. But why does this happen? Why do avoidant men have such a hard time embracing their own attraction? The answer lies in their emotional wiring. These men have often learned, either through past relationships or even childhood experiences, that closeness equals risk. It means vulnerability. It means the possibility of pain. So to protect themselves, they create distance. They convince themselves they don't need connection. They don't want it. They're fine on their own. But attraction doesn't care about their logic. It sneaks in anyway. It overrides the protective mechanisms, even if just for a split. Second, that's why the eyes expose the truth. Here's what you need to do with this knowledge. First, don't chase. If you catch him looking and he quickly looks away, don't call him out. Don't ask him what's wrong. Don't try to force a conversation about it. That will only trigger his defense mechanisms and make him retreat further. Instead, acknowledge it for what it is, proof that he's interested, even if he won't admit it. Second, use it to your advantage. If you really want to test how deep this attraction runs, try this. Catch him looking. Hold his gaze for just a second longer than normal. Don't break it immediately. Don't look away nervously. Just hold it. Calm, confident, steady. Watch what happens next. If he quickly averts his eyes, if he shifts in discomfort, if he suddenly busies himself with something random, that tells you everything. He is feeling something and is strong enough to make him uneasy. But let's take it a step further. Let's say you really want to see how he responds. Try mirroring his energy. If you notice him watching you, return the gesture, but subtly position yourself within his line of sight. But don't initiate contact. See if he continues to steal glances. Watch his body language. Is he leaning slightly in your direction, even without realizing it? Is his attention drawn toward you even when he's pretending to be focused elsewhere? Those are all signs that he's caught up in his own internal battle. At the end of the day, attraction cannot be completely hidden. It always finds a way to manifest. And with avoidant men, the biggest clue is in the way they observe you. It's not in the words they say, because they often suppress those. It's not in their grand gestures, because they avoid emotional exposure. It's in the moments they don't think you can see, the silent, stolen glances, the eyes that follow you across the room even when they pretend not to care. That's where the truth lives. So if you ever find yourself wondering, does he actually like me? Is he just distant, or is there something more? Don't listen to his words. Don't even focus too much on his actions. Just watch his eyes. They'll tell you everything you need to know. An avoidant man is a master of contradictions. One moment he seems present, his energy subtly pulling you in, and the next he's distant, cold, and seemingly uninterested. It's a push-pull dynamic that can leave you confused, questioning whether he cares at all. But here's the key. If he's still showing up in your world, if he's maintaining a presence in any way, even while keeping his distance, that is not an accident. Avoidant men are wired for independence. They fear emotional dependence and they avoid vulnerability at all costs. This isn't just a choice, it's an ingrained defense mechanism. Maybe he's been hurt before, maybe he's built walls so high that even he can't see over them. But deep down, attraction doesn't disappear just because someone is afraid of closeness. It just expresses itself in a more subtle way. And one of the biggest tells is when he creates space but never truly leaves. Pay attention to his patterns. If he really wasn't interested, he would be gone completely. No mixed signals, no half presence, no hovering on the outskirts of your life. When a man has no interest, he removes himself from the equation entirely. He won't linger in your world because he has no emotional attachment. But an avoidant man, he does the opposite. He distances himself just enough to feel safe, but not enough to truly let go. You might notice this in the way he engages with you. He might not reach out often, but he still watches your stories, likes an occasional post, or finds indirect ways to remain in your orbit. He might not initiate deep conversations, but if you bring something up, he responds maybe even enthusiastically at times. He won't fully open up, but he gives you just enough to keep you guessing. That's not indifference, that's hesitation. That's fear of closeness mixed with an undeniable pull toward you. This can show up in physical spaces too. If you work together, go to the same gym, or share a social circle, he may not actively engage, but he's still there. You might notice him nearby, lingering in spaces where he knows you'll be. Maybe he doesn't say much. Maybe he keeps interaction surface level, but the fact remains he is present, and his presence is not a coincidence. This pattern isn't just about keeping his options open. It's deeper than that. Avoidant men fear engulfment, the feeling of losing themselves in a relationship, but at the same time, they crave connection. It's a constant internal struggle. Their logical mind tells them to keep their distance, to maintain control, to stay detached. But their emotions, those tell a different story. That's why he never fully leaves. He's keeping a lifeline, a connection, something that gives him reassurance that if he ever wants to step closer, the door is still open. Now, here's where most people get it wrong. They assume that distance means disinterest, that an avoidant man's hesitation is the same as rejection. It's not. His retreat is about self-preservation, not a lack of attraction. The real test isn't whether he pulls away, it's whether he comes back. Because an avoidant man, when truly disinterested, does not return. He doesn't linger, he doesn't maintain subtle threads of connection, but when he's secretly attracted, he finds ways to stay connected, even if he convinces himself he's keeping things casual. If you want to test this, stop initiating. If he truly doesn't care, you'll feel the difference. He'll drift away entirely, but if he's still drawn to you, he will find small ways to show up. He'll reappear subtly at first, maybe with a comment, a question, or even just an indirect form of engagement. This is his way of keeping the link alive while still protecting himself from the vulnerability that comes with deep connection. Understanding this behavior puts the power back in your hands. Instead of feeling frustrated by his hot and cold energy, you can see it for what it is, a reflection of his internal struggle, not a measure of your worth. When you recognize that his distance is not rejection, but a coping mechanism, you stop taking it personally. And when you stop taking it personally, you gain control over how you respond. What matters most is how you handle his patterns. If you chase, he will run further. If you demand answers, he will shut down. But if you stay grounded, confident, and unshaken by his inconsistency, you shift the dynamic. He will begin to see you as different. Someone who doesn't push him, doesn't pressure him, but also doesn't wait for him. That is the energy that pulls an avoidant man closer. The key is recognizing the difference between a man who is gone and a man who is keeping his distance while still holding on. If he's still around, still finding ways to exist in your world, that means something. The question isn't whether he's interested, it's whether he will allow himself to move past his fears. And the answer to that doesn't come from forcing anything. It comes from you standing firm in your confidence, showing him that if he wants to be in your world, he has to be the one to step forward. Jealousy is one of the biggest giveaways when it comes to an avoidant man who is secretly attracted to you. He may not express his emotions openly, and he may even try to convince himself that he doesn't care, but deep down, jealousy is a reaction he cannot fully control. Unlike more emotionally expressive men, he won't outright tell you that he doesn't like seeing you with someone else. He won't make a scene, and he certainly won't admit that it bothers him. Instead, his jealousy will come out in subtle, indirect ways. One of the first things to look for is a sudden shift in his energy whenever you mention another man. Maybe you casually talk about a guy who helped you with something, a coworker who made you laugh, or a date you went on. Pay close attention to how he reacts. His face might stay neutral, but does his body language change? Does he become quiet or more reserved or suddenly less engaged in the conversation? Maybe he tries to change the subject quickly, as if dismissing the thought before it can settle in his mind. That's not indifference. It's discomfort. Sometimes his jealousy will come out in sarcastic remarks or playful teasing. He might say things like, "Oh, so you've got a new best friend now?" Or, "Guess I'm being replaced." It may seem like he's joking, but there's usually a hint of truth behind it. Avoidant men don't like to expose their emotions directly, so they package them in humor, hoping you won't dig too deep. But if you listen closely, you'll realize that what he's really saying is, "I notice, I don't like it, but I can't say that out loud." Another common sign is when he suddenly starts inserting himself into the conversation in a competitive way. If you mention another man, does he subtly start one-upping him? Maybe you mention a guy who took you to a great restaurant and suddenly he's talking about how he knows an even better place. Or you talk about someone who gave you advice and he starts offering his own wisdom as if proving his value. This isn't a coincidence. It's a reaction to feeling threatened. He might not be fully aware of what he's doing, but deep down, he wants to make sure you still see him as important. The lousy might also show up in his behavior outside of conversations. If he sees you getting attention from another man, does he start acting differently toward you? Maybe he becomes distant for a while, almost as if punishing you for triggering his emotions. Or, on the flip side, maybe he suddenly starts giving you more attention, as if subconsciously trying to pull you back in. The push-pull dynamic of an avoidant man is most obvious when jealousy is in play. He doesn't want to admit that he cares, but he also doesn't want to lose your attention. Another telltale sign is when he starts mirroring your actions. If he sees you engaging with another man, he might subtly try to make you jealous in return. Maybe he casually brings up another woman in conversation, mentioning how she complimented him or how they hung out. He's not necessarily interested in her. He's testing your reaction. He wants to see if you care the way he cares, but he won't ask you directly. Instead, he'll gauge your energy, your response, and whether you seem unfazed or bothered. Some avoidant men will even go as far as withdrawing after a jealousy trigger. Let's say you post a picture with another guy, or he overhears you talking about a fun experience with someone else. Suddenly, he's acting different. He's texting less, engaging less, or acting indifferent toward you. This isn't because he's lost interest. This is a defense mechanism. He's feeling something that makes him uncomfortable, and his instinct is to create space so he doesn't have to deal with it. But make no mistake, if he truly didn't care, he wouldn't react at all. His emotional withdrawal is proof that something affected him. The key to handling an avoidant man's jealousy is to remain aware of these subtle shifts, but not call them out directly. If you try to confront him, asking, "Are you jealous, or does it bother you that I was with someone else?" he will likely shut down. His immediate instinct will be to deny it, because admitting jealousy would mean admitting emotional attachment, something he's not yet ready to do. Instead, simply observe. Take note of the moments when his energy changes, when his actions shift, and when his patterns break. These moments reveal his true feelings far more than his words ever will. The most powerful thing you can do is remain unshaken. If you start over-explaining yourself, reassuring him, or trying to prove your loyalty, you are feeding into his avoidant fears. Instead, hold your ground, be confident in your interactions, and don't let his subtle jealousy pull you into a game of emotional tug-of-war. The less reactive you are, the more he will start to realize that you are different, you are secure, you are not chasing validation, and you are not playing mind game. That confidence is what will ultimately draw him closer. Jealousy is one of the few emotions that can break through an avoidant man's barriers. It's instinctive, raw, and uncontrollable. He may not admit it, he may not express it openly, but if you look closely, the signs are always there. His energy will shift, his actions will change, and his internal conflict will become visible. The question isn't whether he feels something, it's whether he will allow himself to acknowledge it. And the best way to bring him closer is to stay in your power. Let him feel the weight of his own emotions and show him that when he's ready to step forward, you're not waiting, you're simply being. An avoidant man who is secretly attracted to you will often engage in what seems like meaningless small talk, but if you look deeper, you'll see that his words aren't random at all. On the surface, he might keep the conversation light, asking how your day was, commenting on something trivial, or even making an offhand joke. It might seem like he's just being polite or casually social, but that's not the case. Every word he chooses, every moment he spends keeping the conversation going is a way for him to stay connected without exposing his true emotions. Avoidant men have a complicated relationship with Emotional intimacy. They crave connection, but they also fear it. This creates an internal battle where they want to be close to you, but don't want to admit it, sometimes not even to themselves. Small talk becomes a safe middle ground. It allows them to engage with you without having to reveal their deeper feelings. They don't have to risk vulnerability, but at the same time, they still get to feel your presence in their life. And one of the clearest signs that small talk is more than just casual conversation is the consistency with which he initiates it. If a man isn't interested, he won't go out of his way to start conversations, especially not about things that don't seem to matter. But if he's reaching out to ask about something random, like whether you saw a certain movie, how your workout went, or if you heard about some current event, he's not just looking for information, he's looking for an excuse to talk to you. It's also important to notice how he reacts when you respond. If he was just being polite, he wouldn't invest in continuing the conversation. But if he seems eager to keep it going, if he follows up with another question or even just a playful comment, that's a clue. He's not just making small talk, he's finding a way to stay in your world without making it obvious that he wants to. Sometimes his small talk will have an undercurrent of teasing or playful banter. This is another way he shields himself. Rather than expressing his attraction directly, he might joke with you, lightly challenge you, or playfully disagree just to keep the energy alive. If he had no interest, he wouldn't bother. Engaging in playful back and forth is a sign that he enjoys your presence and wants to create a dynamic that keeps you engaged with him as well. Another thing to watch for is how he chooses his conversation topics. Does he bring up little details about your life, things you barely even remember mentioning? Maybe you told him once that you love a certain type of coffee, and weeks later he casually asks if you've had your usual today. That's not small talk, that's interest. That means he's paying attention, remembering things about you, and using them as a way to keep a connection going. Avoidant men often struggle with expressing deep emotions, but their actions always reveal what their words try to hide. Even the moments when he doesn't initiate but responds quickly and fully when you reach out are important. A truly indifferent man will give short, disengaged answers, and he won't put effort into keeping the conversation alive. But an avoidant man who is secretly attracted to you will respond in a way that keeps the interaction flowing, even if he tries to disguise it under a casual tone. His comfort level in small talk also fluctuates. There will be times when he's engaging, light, and even charming, and then suddenly he might withdraw. This push-pull pattern happens because small talk is his safe way of interacting with you, but the more he does it, the more his emotions get involved. When he starts feeling too drawn in, his avoidant instincts kick in and he takes a step back. This is not because he lost interest, because he's trying to regain control over his emotions. One of the biggest signs that his small talk is a cover for deeper feelings is when he reaches out after periods of distance. Maybe he's been quiet for a few days, maybe he seemed to be pulling away, and then suddenly out of nowhere, he texts something like, "Hey, did you see that new show everyone's talking about?" A random question, but do you prefer coffee or tea? These messages might seem meaningless, but they are not. They are his way of reestablishing a connection without having to acknowledge that he missed you. Understanding this behavior changes everything. Instead of feeling confused by his casual approach, you can recognize it for what it is, his way of staying close while protecting himself. The key is to not chase, not push him for deeper conversations he's not ready for, but also not dismiss his small efforts as insignificant. When you see the pattern, when you recognize that every random conversation is actually his attempt to keep you in his life, you gain the upper hand. The way you respond to his small talk sets the tone for the connection. If you engage lightly, matching his energy without seeking more than he's offering, he will feel safe continuing the interaction. Over time, this builds trust. He starts to realize that he can talk to you, that he can enjoy your presence, and that he doesn't have to run away from his feeling. And when that happens, his guard slowly starts to come down. So when an avoided man seems to be making small talk, don't brush it off. Don't assume it means nothing. Look at the patterns. Watch how he initiates, how he reacts, how he finds ways to stay in touch without being obvious about it. That's where his true feelings are hiding. His words may seem casual, but the fact that he's reaching out at all, that's where the real meaning lies. An avoidant man who is secretly attracted to you will have a way of making his body betray what his words try to hide. His mind may tell him to keep his distance, to suppress his emotions, and to avoid deep connections, but his body doesn't always listen. Without realizing it, he will display subconscious physical signs that reveal his true feelings. These micro-expressions, gestures, and shifts in body language speak volumes about what's really going on inside his head. One of the biggest tells is eye contact. An avoidant man might not be the type to hold deep, soul-searching gazes, but that doesn't mean he isn't watching you. Instead of openly staring, he may glance at you when he thinks you're not looking, only to quickly look away when your eyes meet. He does this because prolonged eye contact makes him feel vulnerable. It forces an emotional connection he isn't sure he can handle. But if you catch him watching you from across the room or notice that he always seems to have an eye on you during conversations, that's a strong sign he's drawn to you, even if he's trying to suppress it. Another subtle yet powerful sign is how he positions his body when he's around you. Avoidant men don't like to make their attraction obvious, but their physical orientation gives them away. If he's interested, he will often subconsciously angle his body toward you, even if he's not directly engaging with you. His feet might be pointing in your direction, his torso might lean slightly toward you when you're speaking, or he may find small ways to close the physical gap between you. Even if he maintains a bit of distance, his body will always be oriented toward you, as if pulled by an invisible force. Fidgeting is another classic sign of nervous attraction. If he's truly indifferent, he will be calm and unaffected around you. But if he secretly likes you, his body may react in ways he can't fully control. Maybe he plays with his watch, taps his fingers, adjusts his sleeves, or runs a hand through his hair more than usual. These small gestures often indicate underlying tension, the kind that comes from wanting to get closer but feeling unsure or nervous about it. His voice and tone can also give away his feelings. An avoidant man might try to keep his conversations casual and controlled. But if he's attracted to you, you might notice small shifts in his vocal patterns. Maybe his voice gets slightly softer when he talks to you, or perhaps he slows down his speech in a way that he doesn't with others. He might also clear his throat more often or take deeper breaths before responding. Small physiological reactions that signal his heightened awareness of your presence. Proximity is another big giveaway. Avoidant men tend to be cautious with their personal space, so if he finds ways to be near you, it's not accidental. You might not initiate direct physical touch, but if he's consistently sitting next to you when there are other options available, or standing close enough that you feel his presence, that's a sign he's drawn to you. In group settings, he may not always engage directly, but he positions himself where he can hear you, see you, or be part of your space without making it obvious. Sometimes an avoidant man's physical attraction manifests in controlled or restrained touch. If he does make contact, it's often subtle and fleeting, a light touch on your arm when making a point, brushing past you in a crowded space, or playfully tapping your shoulder. These small, seemingly insignificant touches are his way of testing the waters without fully exposing his emotions. They allow him to feel connected to you while still maintaining the illusion of detachment. One of the most interesting things to observe is how he reacts to your touch. An avoidant man who is interested will instinctively pull away or seem unaffected, but if he's secretly attracted to you, his reaction will be different. Maybe he tenses slightly as if processing the moment, or maybe he lingers just a second longer than necessary before stepping back. He might act as if he didn't notice, but his body will react before his mind catches up. Mirroring is another subconscious behavior that reveals attraction. If he's drawn to you, he may start mimicking your movements without realizing it. If you cross your arms, he does the same. If you take a sip of your drink, he follows. If you lean in slightly, he instinctively leans in too. This happens because on a deep psychological level, he wants to create a connection with you, even if he doesn't consciously acknowledge it. Even his breathing patterns can shift when he's around you. If you're close to him and notice that his breathing becomes slightly irregular or deeper, that's a sign his body is reacting to your presence. It's subtle, but it speaks volumes. His heart rate might pick up and his body might become more alert, even if he tries to appear calm on the outside. Understanding an avoidant man's body language gives you insight into what he won't say out loud. His mind may fight his emotions, but his body will always tell the truth. The way he watches you when he thinks you're not looking, the nervous fidgeting, the subtle leaning in, the tension in his shoulders when you touch him, all of these are signs that his attraction is stronger than his fear. He may not express it directly, but if you pay attention, his body will reveal everything he's trying to hide. An avoidant man who is secretly attracted to you will often find himself in a constant internal battle between pushing you away and pulling you back in. This push-pull dynamic is one of the most frustrating yet revealing signs of his hidden feelings. Unlike someone who is emotionally open and secure, an avoidant man has a deep-rooted fear of intimacy, making it difficult for him to allow himself to get too close. But at the same time, his attraction to you is undeniable, creating an internal struggle that manifests in his behavior. One of the clearest signs of this dynamic is his tendency to withdraw after moments of connection. You might have a great conversation, a deep moment of bonding, or a shared experience that brings you closer. Everything seems to be going well. He's engaging, present, and even showing signs of warmth. And then suddenly he pulls back. He may go quiet for a while, take longer to respond to messages, or even disappear altogether for a short period. This is not because he has lost interest. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When an avoidant man gets too close, his instinct is to create space to regain a sense of control over his emotions. The reason behind this behavior is that deep emotional connections make an avoidant man feel vulnerable. He has likely spent much of his life avoiding deep attachments as a defense mechanism. So when he starts feeling something real, it triggers discomfort. His automatic response is to retreat, not because he doesn't want you, but because he doesn't know how to navigate the intensity of his emotions. What makes this push-pull cycle even more telling is that once he's created distance, he inevitably finds a way to come back. It may start with something small, a random text, a comment on social media, or a question that seems trivial, but is really just his way of reestablishing contact. He might act as if nothing happened, as if his period of withdrawal never occurred. This is his way of testing the waters, making sure you're still there without having to fully acknowledge his actions. He returns, he often does so with renewed enthusiasm. He might be more playful, more attentive, or even more engaged than before. It's almost as if he's making up for the distance he created. This pattern repeats itself over and over. He pulls away when things get too close, only to be drawn back in because his attraction to you is too strong to ignore. One way to recognize this pattern is to observe how he behaves after moments of emotional intensity. If he suddenly seems distant after a deep conversation, a fun date, or a vulnerable exchange, it's not a coincidence. It's a sign that he's feeling something that scares him. But if he eventually comes back around, it means that despite his fears, he can't stay away. Another key aspect of this dynamic is that he may try to keep the relationship in a gray area. He might engage in deep, meaningful conversations with you, but then act distant the next day. He may show signs of interest, but hesitate to take things to the next level. He could even make vague statements like, "I'm just not ready for something serious," or "I don't know what I want," yet continue to engage with you in a way that goes beyond casual friendship. These are all signs that he is struggling with his emotions, wanting to be close, but fearing what that closeness represents. Sometimes his way of pushing and pulling isn't as obvious. Instead of disappearing completely, he might simply become inconsistent. One day he might be engaging and affectionate, and the next he's emotionally unavailable. This inconsistency is not a reflection of how he feels about you, but rather a reflection of his internal struggle. It's his way of trying to manage his emotions without fully acknowledging them. Another interesting aspect of this dynamic is that he may become more avoidant, a particularly strong connection. If you feel like you had a breakthrough with him, if he opened up, shared something personal, or showed a side of himself he usually keeps hidden, don't be surprised if he suddenly becomes distant afterward. The closer he gets, the stronger his instinct to pull away. This is because to an avoidant man, intimacy feels like a loss of control, and control is what keeps him feeling safe. But despite all his efforts to maintain distance, his attraction to you keeps pulling him back in. That's why no matter how many times he withdraws, he always finds a way to re-engage. This cycle can be confusing, but once you understand it, it becomes easier to navigate. The key is to not chase him when he pulls away if you try to pull him back while he's in avoidance mode, he will only retreat further. Instead, the best approach is to give him space while maintaining your own sense of confidence and security. When he realizes that you're not going to pressure him, but also not going to wait around endlessly, it forces him to confront his own feelings. Understanding this push-pull behavior is crucial because it shows you that his avoidance is not a sign of disinterest. Rather, it's a sign that he cares more than he is willing to admit. His pattern of withdrawing and returning is not a game. It's a reflection of his internal conflict. He is caught between his deep attraction to you and his fear of emotional vulnerability, and the fact that he keeps coming back, that's the biggest sign that despite his avoidant nature, you are someone he simply can't let go of. An avoidant man who is secretly attracted to you will find subtle ways to stay in your life. Even if he appears distant on the surface, he may not express his feelings directly, but his actions will always reveal his true emotions. One of the most telling signs is his quiet consistency. He may not be overtly affectionate or emotionally expressive, but he will always find ways to be around, to check in, or to maintain a connection in ways that seem insignificant but actually hold deeper meaning. One way he does this is by keeping in touch, even if it's not in an obvious or romantic way. He may send you a random text about something trivial, reply to your social media posts, or mention an inside joke just to reestablish contact. These small interactions are his way of making sure you don't forget about him without having to make himself emotionally vulnerable. It's not that he lacks interest. Rather, he is trying to manage the intensity of his attraction in a way that feels safe to him. His presence in your life can also be seen in how he positions himself around you. He may not always engage in deep conversations or make grand gestures, but he will always be nearby. Whether it's choosing to sit close to you in group settings, showing up at the same events you attend, or casually lingering in places where he knows he'll run into you, his actions are not accidental. He is drawn to your presence, even if he won't fully admit it to himself. Another revealing behavior is how he subtly supports you. He may not offer direct emotional reassurance, but he will show up in small but meaningful ways. Maybe he remembers little details about your life, follows up on things you've mentioned, or finds ways to be helpful without making the big deal about it. Avoidant men often struggle with emotional expression, but they show their care through actions rather than words. You might also notice that he reacts differently when you distance yourself. If you stop reaching out or become less available, he will find ways to pull you back in. He may not directly ask why you've been distant, but he'll create a reason to talk to you again. This behavior is a clear indication that despite his avoidance, he doesn't want to lose the connection. At times, he may even test your level of interest by disappearing for a short period to see how you respond. If he pulls away but then subtly checks in, whether through a casual message or a comment on something you've shared, he's trying to gauge whether you still care. This pattern isn't about playing games, it's about his fear of rejection and his need for reassurance without directly asking for it. An avoidant man's way of staying in your life is subtle, yet consistent. He may not be openly expressive, but his actions reveal his struggle between wanting to keep his emotional walls up and his deep, undeniable attraction to you. Attraction is not always loud. It doesn't always come in the form of grand gestures or poetic confessions. Sometimes it hides behind hesitation, distance, and uncertainty. The avoidant man may not say what he feels, but his actions, his patterns, and his subtle inconsistencies tell the real story. His glances when he thinks you aren't looking, the way he finds reasons to be around, the push-pull dynamic that keeps drawing him back. These are the signs of a man who is deeply attracted but terrified of what that attraction means. Understanding this behavior isn't about chasing him or trying to break down his walls. It's about recognizing the truth beneath the surface and deciding what that truth means for you. Attraction without action, connection without commitment. These are difficult spaces to navigate. But when you see these signs, know that they stem from something real, something he may not even fully understand himself. At the end of the day, no matter how avoidant someone may be, the heart always finds a way to reveal itself. It may not be in the way you expect, and it may not always be easy, but the signs are always there. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Thank you for taking the time to listen, reflect, and seek understanding. Attraction, love, and human connection are complex, but awareness is the first step to clarity. If this speech resonated with you, I hope you walk away with greater insight, confidence, and wisdom in your own journey. Remember, you deserve a connection that is not only deep, but also open and fulfilling. Keep valuing yourself, keep recognizing the truth, and most importantly, keep moving forward with strength. Stay strong, stay aware, and never settle for less than you deserve. Thank you.